Hey there. Thank you so much for coming in again for Out on a Limb with Gabby Allan. Today, I have a very delightful person for you to talk with at the table. This is Bill Peschel, and we're going to thank Bill ahead of time because I am having all kinds of ridiculous technical difficulties. And not only did he stay, not only did he try again, he also smiled. So I do appreciate that so much. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in with the question that I tend to like to ask everyone. And that's, first of all, hello, Bill, and thank you for being here. And then what is it that you do and how do you do it?
I was just about to say I was going to do something like, thank you but I think that probably, I don't know how you would have taken that. So we will just
Fine.
go ahead and go back to that. What was the question again? I forgot.
That's okay. The question is, what is it that you do and how do you do it?
Okay. All right. Well, I do everything and I do it poorly. That's pretty much been the sum of my career
Stop
so
it.
far. Well, you'll see when we get into this because okay, I am co-owner. I am the founder and co-owner of Peschel Press.
Yes.
We are self-publishers. We have published about 24, 25 books so far by a number of authors, some myself, some by my wife, one by my daughter.
Okay.
We do all kinds of books. Teresa writes science fiction romances of Dessa Moon. I have put together anthologies of Sherlock Holmes fan fiction from Conan Doyle's lifetime. Cool. We also do Agatha Christie annotated novels and sewing books and a Victorian flower guide. That is, again, a compilation of the Victorian books and then organized well with scientific names as well as gems and their associated powers as well.
Wow, that's really cool. Gems. I am seriously into that kind of stuff. They have a gem show in Lancaster, I think, and every single time I'm doing something else already. And I'm like, come on, can you please put it on a weekend where I can actually be there? So with gems, is it more like is it a nonfiction book explaining what gems are and then what their meanings are, or is it more like how to find a specific kind of cut?
Yeah, it's more like a coffee table reference book because there's illustrations in there taken from Victorian sources, and the gems are all the list of the gems with their associated powers. So if you were looking for something to access the astral plane, you use this particular gem. If you're looking to align your chakras, there's this type. And as we say,
that's so fun. That is so fun.
It is. It's surprising when we show it to people. They get excited about it. There was the Rosemary shop in Mechanicsburg.
I love Susanna over there.
Isn't that a fantastic place?
My kid used to do their fairy festival. They have the fairy festival in September, I think, usually, or they have previously. And so we used to go every single year. And then all of a sudden she was old enough to work there. And and so I dropped her off and she did kid crafts and all that kind of stuff. They have a wonderful Mechanicsburg has so many fun little things that you can do if you're willing to explore and park out near the train. So they carry your book. That's very cool. Now, is it a hardcover then, or is it do you do mainly paperbacks?
Yeah, it's paperback. It's large size. I wish I had a copy here behind me, but
that's okay.
But it's 8.5 by 11. Soft cover book, and we do trade paperbacks for all the others as well. So this is Sherlock Holmes Victorian Parodies. So this is 6 by 9.
Okay.
And we have ebooks as well.
So when you said Sherlock Holmes fanfic, where do you get that from? Do people write in and do you put a call out and say, hey, I'm looking for Sherlock Holmes fanfic? Or are these things that you found from other people throughout the years and then made a compilation of them?
That's more like that.
Oh,
These are
okay.
from Conan Doyle's lifetime. So we're actually using fan fiction and backdating it. But essentially that is what they are, because this is from 1888 to 1899, 10-year period, the Victorian era.
Yeah.
And it's all the fanfic that we found, and some of it was written by well-known people. There's some that was written by anonymous. J.M. Barrie wrote one. He wrote a couple in here. Conan Doyle actually wrote a couple as well, making fun of his creations.
How do you fanfic your own stuff? I love that.
Yeah, there was one he did. It was for a fundraiser in the Edinburgh University, where he had gone to medical school, and it was called "How Watson Learned the Trick." And it just kind of played with Holmes being having the ability to deduce everything from the smallest objects, from trifles, and it was Watson's turn to show what he could do as well.
Oh my gosh, I absolutely love that. That is that's a fun concept. So is that something that you thought, hey, I'd really love to do this? Or did you see something and then it triggered it for you? Or like, how do you come up with what? Obviously Odessa Moon is different. She's doing like her own fiction, that she's writing her own worlds and that kind of stuff, but it sounds like you are doing like anthologies, compilations, more like culling information and making a book from that. So how do you decide what thing you want to do next?
Well, it was it was so long ago, it's hard to remember, except that it started with Dorothy Sayers. Okay, because I have on my website, I was annotating the novels of Dorothy Sayers on my website. And this is, God knows, we're talking back to 1995.
Oh, wow. Well, there you go.
I was reading Dorothy Sayers, loved her work. And if you don't know, she was a very intelligent woman. She was one of the first women to go to Oxford.
Oh.
And her books, Peter Wimsey books, are all filled with all kinds of references. There's cultural references, social references. Wimsey knows about books, so he's collecting incunabula, which is I believe pre 1600 manuscripts.
Oh,
so he's very learned, but there's all this stuff that you're reading, thinking, what is this? There's times when he'll bust out in something in Greek, and you're going, okay, let me go to get my ancient Greek dictionary and find out what he's saying here.
So then, for people who are not aware, that is what annotation is. Is that correct?
Yeah, okay. That's taking the original story, not changing it, but just adding footnotes to describe this is what this is about. Okay. So, I thought that's what it was. I was pretty sure that was what it was, but I wanted, when you use the word, I was like, in my little brain, I'm thinking, hey, make sure that you verify that what you're thinking is correct. So you're going through her books and you are looking things up as you're reading to make sure that you're understanding what the reference is, and then you're providing the reference initially to yourself, like on the margins or like on a piece of paper. Well, it was actually on a website. I just started a website, personal website, Planet Peschel, which was just to be kind of a repository for whatever I felt like writing. Yeah. And interesting. And so I started putting this stuff up on that site. It's called the Annotating Whimsy site, although I'm going to move it over. I'm in the process of moving it over to Peschel Press, but right now it's still on that site. I haven't done that much with it, with the site itself, but with the Annotating Whimsy, I did like 3/4 of the books. Wow. And it's a massive project. Unfinished project, like most of my books and projects. They're unfinished and probably will remain so. Well, you sound like we need to do some kind of challenge where I say, all right, Bill, I heard you have XYZ that's unfinished. I'd like to see what you can do by the end of the month. You can do the 50-50. I would accept. Right now I am trying to finish projects and I am getting them done, but going back and doing the unfinished projects still out there is just one of those things, because I am finishing up. I'm writing essays for The Man in the Brown Suit, which is an Agatha Christie novel. Yes. That's next in the annotating Agatha series.
Okay.
But to get back to Sayers,
Yes.
I worked my way through, and I was going to start on Whose Body, which was the first book. And this was like 2010 or so. So, Whimsy has been around for 15 years or so online. And I was going to start on Whose Body. And this was about the time I realized, because Amazon was coming in with their self-publishing option.
Yes.
And I realized Whose Body was in the public domain.
Oh, that makes a difference.
And I
a
thought,
lot.
I could publish a book. I could publish the book myself.
Yes.
And it's kind of weird because it's only weird in that you have to know the vagaries of copyright law.
Okay.
To understand this, because the rest of Dorothy Sayers' novels are copyrighted.
Oh.
And her first book is copyrighted still in the United Kingdom and the European Union.
Interesting.
It's
so you have to know, excuse me, do you have like a spreadsheet where you keep track of things like that, or how would you go about researching that? I guess is that's what's fascinating to me.
Yeah, well, copyright law is actually rather simple here. I'm going to pull out my earplugs in a moment.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Whatever you need to do.
Yeah, because this is from Nolo Press, the public domain.
Okay, well, this is kind of right there, out there for you.
It's right there. So it's just a matter of looking at it. And as a matter of fact, there was an issue that came up with the second book in the series, and I actually wasn't sure about, and I actually had to spend money. I actually spent money on a lawyer to research it for me.
Wow.
After paying him a couple $100, he came back and said, yeah, it's under copyright. You can't do this.
You're like,
okay.
Dang it.
Darn it. So I published it on my website without the text. So it didn't go to waste. That was her next book, Clouds of Witness.
Okay.
But yeah, I had done this for a while. I have all kinds of lists, although now it's gotten to the point really where if I wanted to actually publish my fiction, I'm going to have to stop the annotations. So
why would you have to make that choice?
Because I only have so much time in the day.
Oh, okay. That's
it
I got
takes
you.
Like 3 or 4 months to annotate one of Agatha's books.
Wow.
Because of other things I have to do. And these are like the last one. They're hundreds of footnotes. And I try writing essays to go dive into a lot of the issues behind a particular book.
Interesting.
Like for Secret Adversary, because it concerned Tommy and Tuppence after the war. I wanted to write, I wrote an essay about the status of women after World War I.
Okay.
From a number of standpoints. They were being forced out of the labor market because the men were coming back.
Yes.
There was also a demographic problem because a lot of the men had died or were seriously wounded. So there was a like a 60-40 imbalance in the genders.
Oh.
So women who wanted to marry couldn't.
Because there weren't enough people available.
There were not enough men around.
What? And I love that kind of thing, because we often look back historically and we see the big picture stuff. We see, this law was made or that law was made or this was the outcome, but we don't always think about how that affected the person on the street. Like we see how maybe something affected the government, or we see how something affected this state, or we see how, it affected the education system or something like that. But like getting down into, but Mary Sue over here at 322 Orchard Street was still living with her mom because her father died and there were not enough men for her to find somebody to marry. I love the humanity of the stories like that. So that's very cool that you have that kind of information to work with.
Oh yeah, it's fascinating. All kinds of stuff. With Secret Adversary, I also dived into conspiracy novels about the ones about the popular novels. Before World War I, you had novels that postulated that Germany was going to invade England and what would happen then. Invasion novels, that was an actual subgenre.
Was it? That was actually considered a subgenre.
Yeah, it was. It was a thriller novel
Wow.
about, because Germany had coalesced into essentially, the German Empire, and they were
Yes.
rattling their swords. They wanted
Right.
their place in the sun,
Right.
and they were considered a threat, which of course they
Huh.
were.
Right.
Um,
But not to what people like. So give me one conspiracy of how they thought that was going to happen. Did they all point to a specific person, which is, how things ended up working, or did people have different theories on how it was going to come about?
well, what it ended up becoming, a lot of it was, they were called invasion novels because they would they always postulated like a German invasion of England,
Okay.
either allied with France or allied with Russia, or maybe
Huh.
just by themselves.
Right.
There,
Interesting.
yeah, and there were a couple of novels along that line. There was actually also some that dealt with China as well. I'm doing research for another book
Okay.
based on James Thurber's Sherlock parodies,
Mm-hmm.
and because he has a Chinese man as his manservant, that got me into how were Chinese portrayed in popular culture at the time,
Right.
and that got into things like Fu Manchu
Mm.
and other ways in which there were Chinese Mandarins who were working with the Japanese, which of course would never happen in real life for obvious
Right.
reasons. But that's what they would still postulate as a way of saying, oh, they're going to invade the West
Huh.
and conquer us or conquer England.
It
And it was,
That's
and then,
crazy.
yeah, oh, it is. Oh, it definitely was. But they made such great villains, and they
Yes.
tell a story. And if you know from your reading, there's going to be certain stories you'll run across where it's like, objectively, this is nonsense,
Right.
but I want to
Yes.
see what happens next.
Yes. Yes. I find it fascinating myself. I watch a lot of because of my day job where I just am a document specialist, so I
Yeah.
look at stuff all day. I listen to a lot of things through YouTube. And one of my favorite things is like, well, for a while there, I was very into like Rome conquering things.
Mhm.
Just because I wanted to see like what makes you think, why can you not just stay at home? Like why why must you own everything around you? And my fascination with, okay, so you own this like island out in the middle of nowhere, but how do you keep control over that, just like
Mhm.
Hadrian's Wall and stuff like that? And so I'm like did it show us that you were like this all powerful person, which is a lot of it was definitely a power grab sometimes, but it was very interesting to me to see how things were back then, and then to think about nothing like that. Things do not happen in quite the same way. We're not people aren't promising the Celts one thing and then slamming them in the second that they get them and overtaking them and making them hide in the woods and stuff like that. And so, like, do you like to also see kind of what the average life was like back then, to take what we were talking about with the women and that kind of thing? Like, is that a baseline of kind of what you're looking for?
It's not really so much what I'm looking for as what does the text tell me
Okay.
that directs me to find out more about that, because I am very widely read and have shallow depths of knowledge about everything. So
Okay.
I could tell you who won the Civil War, but I can't really go into Jeb Stuart's career
I
with the
gotcha.
battles and figures. But I know the general course of everything, and yeah, some
Okay.
of it is more deeper than others. I'm kind of
Yes.
exaggerating, but I'm interested in everything.
Mm-hmm.
So when
Yeah.
they're talking about somebody being paid £50 in
Yes.
an Agatha Christie novel from 1922, I go look up how much is that worth today. Is that a
Okay.
lot, or is that a little? I didn't know.
Right.
And you start getting a baseline figure of essentially £3 or £4 is what a working man earned a week and is able to support a family during the Victorian and early Edwardian eras. Very
Wow.
little. You
Yeah.
could live off of a £5 note quite nicely,
That
which
is wild.
yeah, it is. It gives you a better idea of the scale of currency and what is considered rich and what isn't.
Yeah.
And then it can be, they'll name a certain type of fabric, and I'd say, well, what is that?
Right.
or, what is an ulster, which is a type of raincoat,
Mm-hmm.
and why is something named that way? And I do word definitions as well, because I just don't know.
That's my favorite. I I love hearing where things come from.
Yeah.
My grandfather, when he was alive, one of our things that we would do with each other was try to stump each other. And so I'm gonna say probably from the time I was about 4 or 5 years old until I would have been, I guess, 28 when he passed away. It was an ongoing thing
Yeah.
for 24 years. Can I stump you with something that I'm pretty sure you don't know? And
Mm-hmm.
it just was talk about stimulating brain stuff. But I learned so much in a very casual way because I would go hunt things down to see if I could stump him. And it was so wonderful because it was not like, here, sit down, finish this paper and learn this lesson. It was, here, learn this lesson. Although I won't say I was always smart, because I also had an uncle, a great uncle, and I'd play war with him, the card game. And I never realized that he always won because his cards were flipped up. He would look through them for what was going to top my card.
Yep.
So I'm not going to say it was all. I had pockets of smartness, which
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with.
Yeah.
So when you're writing these books, do you ever want to fictionalize something? Because I'm hearing that you're doing like anthologies and pulling together fanfic and pulling together annotations and that kind of thing. Like, are you ever like, that's a really interesting thing. I wonder if I made my own characters and put those in there. Is that at all something that you are interested in doing, or do you like the okay?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. See, they told you about the unfinished projects.
Oh, uh-oh.
Oh
You're
boy.
gonna you're gonna bring out Misty the drill sergeant here in about 2.3 seconds. Your email is going to be every Monday. Tell me what you're doing this week and what's going to be finished. I actually do that for 2 other people, so don't be surprised if I email you and say, so what are you doing this week, Bill?
Oh, editing my wife's next book, which is 230,000 words. What are you doing?
Ah, 230,000 words.
Yeah.
Whoo! Mine
Yeah.
are usually 75.
Yep.
That's a really big story.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
wow.
Teresa's first book, Bride from Deripaska, was like 80,000.
Okay.
And then White Elephant of Panshin, that came in at, about 180,000.
Whew.
And this one is actually broken into 2 parts.
Okay.
The Vanished Pearls of Orloff, that's 230,000. And then the second half of the story is Escape to Hightower. And
my eyebrows, they're
yeah,
almost disappearing.
yeah, yeah, it is huge, actually.
Yeah,
I have to go over there and get you the manuscript and say, see, this is what I've been doing. Look at this editing I've been doing.
42 pounds of pages.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. But yeah,
So, go ahead.
I am doing writing. I actually,
Okay.
because I liked the Sherlocks so much, I actually decided I wrote a Mark Twain short story involving Sherlock Holmes.
Oh my gosh,
And
that's so cool.
this was back in 2000. I actually wrote a short story because and that wasn't actually that was for a contest, and it wasn't a Sherlock Holmes story. This is the way things happen.
Okay.
Because in 2000 I was living in Harrisburg for 6 months, trying to buy a house and get my wife and family up from York, South Carolina.
Makes sense.
And I read somewhere, I can't remember now because it might have been at the newspaper, there was a short about the Atlantic magazine holding a Mark Twain contest, a writing contest. They wanted short stories, and it was going to be judged by Garrison Keillor and Joyce Carol Oates and all these people. And they wanted a Mark Twain. They had a manuscript that Mark never finished.
Oh.
Called A Murder, a Mystery, and a Marriage.
Okay.
And this was an idea he had. He was trying to get the Atlantic to get in on this, that he wrote the first half. He would have all these famous people like Henry James finish the second half, and they would publish the whole thing.
Oh, that's an interesting concept. It's almost like a writing round robin.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Except that they were all going to finish the book their way, finish the short story their way.
Right.
And nobody was interested in it because why work with Mark Twain? You know, they're all writing their own stuff. Thank you very much. They don't need Mark's help. Thank you very much. And so they decided to do it this way. And so I was bored because I was living by myself, and all I was doing was looking at houses and going to work. And I thought, well, why don't I try? Why don't I enter?
Yeah.
And so, you know, I wrote something and sent it in, and it turned out I won second place.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Absolutely. There was a ceremony in Buffalo, New York, because this was also part in Buffalo, because the library there, they had the first half of the manuscript for Huckleberry Finn.
Oh, wow.
And the second half had just surfaced. It was promised to them, but it ended up in somebody's trunk. And so as part of the celebration for reuniting it, they were going to, they got with the Atlantic to hold this contest to draw attention to it. And the ceremony was there.
That is so fun.
Yeah. It was.
You're like, where am I going? I'm looking at houses on Tuesday. What do you want me to do?
Yeah, they flew me to Buffalo from Harrisburg.
Wow. I'm surprised they didn't have you take the train.
I don't know. They just, of course, that would have, oh God, that would have been painful. Harrisburg to Philadelphia to New York to Albany, west of Buffalo. That would have taken 2.5 days.
Yes. I totally agree.
Yep. But anyway, and so, you know, they gave me a check. It was actual money, $1,500, $2,000, something like that.
Wow.
Well worth it.
Yeah.
Well worth it. And the thought kind of stayed with me I can't remember how it surfaced, but the idea of doing something with Mark Twain and Sherlock Holmes surfaced in my head. And I thought, you know, that could be something interesting.
I would read it.
Yeah.
I would like to read it now. Why are you talking to me when you should be writing?
I did.
Oh,
I
did you?
I did, and I published it as the Casebook of Twain and Holmes. So that's already
Hold
there.
on, I gotta write it down.
But
did you say Casebook?
The Casebook of Twain and Holmes.
Okay. Now, can I buy books direct through your website? Is that, or do you have?
I have a site on my. I have a page where it refers you to various. You know, it's Amazon, Book Depository, area, because it's through Ingram Spark as well.
Okay.
It might even be at Mechanicsburg Mystery as well. I can't remember if they still have a copy, but you can certainly, if you want to, you go. Actually, I did set up a link with them and with Cupboard Maker Books so that they will send signed copies. So
that's what I want.
Copy.
I want the signed copy.
You just, I do have a place on my website on peschelpress.com where you can go and I do have a link to say, hey, here's how you can do this. You basically, you call the bookstore, you give them your information because they are used to handling this. They let me know and I come out and sign it and they ship it. So,
they don't need to ship it. I'm close enough that I'm pretty sure I could run over to the mystery book shop.
Drop off there. Absolutely. Absolutely. And just
I got to get over there and sign things anyway. Yeah. The Gabby Allan book came out yesterday and I promised Deb that I would come over and sign her stock. So maybe while I'm there, I will ask for it's like a half a mile away. I can go over there.
You can walk over there.
I probably could. That would require walking. Bill.
I see that would be a disadvantage. Yeah,
it is what it is.
Best not to. Don't risk it.
I don't want to be rushed by all the many fans as I'm trying to stroll with my parasol and my petticoat down the road.
Well, you would have to go down the road. I don't think there's any sidewalks out there at all, so you really should be better not.
The sidewalk ends, as Phil Silverstein says. The sidewalk ends like right as you go to Rudders. there is no more sidewalk from Rutter's out. My cousin actually lives, so you know where the mystery bookstore is, right next to that is like this brick farm that my cousin lives there and owns.
Oh, really?
Owns
Just
that.
across the street,
Mm-hmm.
that little side street
Mm-hmm.
that you have to pull out on?
Yes. Yep. She owns that. My other cousin got married there. And it was really funny because she's walking down the aisle and all you hear are like 100 chickens underneath us start freaking out because it's so the barn itself, the way that it's situated is that what looks at the road has the ramp that you would put the hay in. Right. And then on the back side, it's 2 stories because the hay goes up into storage. And then normally you would drop it down over the side. Yeah. So there's 2 levels on the back side, but there's only 1 level on the front side. Yeah. And so they keep their chickens down below. And my one cousin's walking and like, you know, the music's beautiful and you hear, bagok, bagok, bagok. I was like, oh no, you didn't like put those in the other chicken coop.
I hope they videotaped it. I want to see that on YouTube.
I'll have to ask.
Million views guaranteed. I know that house. I look at it. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful. I love that.
They have a really great property. They've got dogs, and I know they have the chickens. They have cats. And then I think they do some growing. I think they have trees in the back. I have not explored it, but when my cousin was getting married there, they were doing like this whole country thing. And so like they're pulling up in a wagon. I was like, I would not trust myself on something, but that's me. We're not all like me. A lot of us are, but not all of us are. So I hope you didn't get that gene where you're about to fall out of the wagon and tumble into the well, because that would be how things roll for me. Yeah. It's really okay. But yeah, go ahead.
No, it's just that there are some people I've noticed things happen to them. You go up to them and say, you know, hey, Walt, how you doing? And he says, you won't believe what just happened to me. And he launches this story and I'm thinking, I live a dull life.
Yes. I often ask, do you have an hour? Like, because if you have an hour, I'll make my story fit whatever your time slot available. I'll make sure to cut this part out and this part out. If you only have 15 minutes, we'll get to the core stuff. But if you have an hour, I could probably tell you maybe 60%. If you got 3 hours, we're at 100, and I'll buy you a drink. Because you're going to need it. I'm not lying. So I love that kind of stuff. I enjoy talking to people and getting their stories too. So your stories, as far as your fiction, because now I'm like all ramped up to how do we do the fiction thing? So if you
this is it.
Okay. This is
it as far as being published right now.
So the things that you're working on though that aren't done, are they your like a totally brand new world that you're creating, or is it like the Mark Twain and Sherlock continues kind of thing, or like what are you, how does your brain work when it comes to creating stories?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I think that's just for somebody else to figure out. I will just tell you this is what I do, and then they can go and say, you're nuts.
They're not going to say that. They're not going to say that.
Well,
they're going to love what you do.
They'll come to conclusions. Because right now I have, there is, God, what are we talking about here? I got to go look here. I got them written on the wall.
That's
okay. We got novellas. I got a couple of novellas, Man Out of Time, which is a time travel into the present. It's a rom-com time travel.
Okay.
The draft is written. It just needs some editing. I had there's a friend of ours who read it and she had notes, so I have to, I have to flesh it out some more. So that's,
as you do,
20,000 words. There is Dead Stock, which is a zombie uprising at a music festival that looks may or may not be like Hershey.
Does the whole town smell like chocolate?
Actually, it does. It does. At least our neighborhood. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, I've driven. I meant in your book.
Oh, my book.
I've driven through there, and
Hadn't really thought about that, but I should, I probably could work that in there as well.
I think you could. It could mask the smell of brains.
That could. But yeah, it takes place there. It's, again, that's written. It just needs, another pass, an editing pass, just to make sure it's what it is.
And that's a novella too.
That's a novella as well.
Okay.
There's going to be a third one that is not written, and that's called London Calling.
Oh, one of my favorite songs, but go ahead.
Well, as a matter of fact, you talk about process. Yes. This was something weird. And I don't really know. I think it was just an idea that came up because I have iTunes on my computer.
Okay.
And there's a section where I have a lot of my favorite songs there. And for some reason, London Calling actually came up. It just came up in the rotation. And a story began to take shape in my mind. Something in London, something involving criminals, this kind of Guy Ritchie type heist, stolen stuff. I don't know, something. It just started coming in.
Yeah.
And then
that's how it works.
Well, it did. And then the next song came on, and I cannot remember what it is, and I can't look it up at the moment.
That's okay.
It's just going to be something else. And I thought, oh, and then this happens. And I kind of started taking notes. And then 12 songs came up in the rotation. Blondie, The Hardest Part.
Oh.
Junior Brown, Highway Patrol. There was, like I said, London Calling. There was like all these other songs. And I'm kind of like, ELO came up.
I love them. I love them so much.
They are one of my favorites. And it just, again, by the time I ended up with 12 songs, and I thought, I got to do something with this. I had 12 songs and an outline. So why not write something? Why not write it? And I have not done that yet. I've never done anything more than just the list of stories. And I'm actually looking it up. Oh yeah, Satisfaction.
Okay.
The Bruce Springsteen song Redheaded Woman.
Yes. The
Hardest Part, Whip It.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, how do I go from Redheaded Woman to Hardest Part to Whip It?
Okay.
There's a great song, New Frontier, which was by the Steely Dan, one of the Steely Dan members.
Yes.
The Nightfly album.
Oh, I love Steely Dan. I love Steely Dan, and Seals and Croft are two of my very favorite. Bread is also another. I know. My mom was young when she had me, and so I grew up when she married my dad.
Yeah.
I grew up in a divided house because my dad was Kiss and the Rolling Stones and the oh my gosh, ZZ Top and the Charlie Daniels Band, and my mom was Seals and Croft and Bread and Steely Dan, just like all of the, she was the soft and he was the harder one.
Soft rock, and then
they
hard
both
rock.
Liked Led Zeppelin. But Heart pretty much always played in our house. And so I had a very extensive, I didn't really listen to anything but albums when I was growing up. I didn't listen to a lot of radio. And so like I am very well versed in the 70s stuff.
Yeah.
Which I wasn't born. I wasn't born when most of it was coming out, but I can still tell you the stuff. And I love those songs. And I just had a thought in my head. One of the things that and I'm not going to comment on current music at all. I am just going to say that in the 70s, there was so much storytelling going on. There are a ton of songs out there that have nothing to do with falling in love with anyone. They have nothing to do with what your body looked like. They have nothing to do with that. They're not even as hooky as the songs are today. Like you could get an earworm pretty easily from anything from the Whip It. You say it and you're like da na 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 na. So you like, but you listen to Lynyrd Skynyrd, and yes, they do have a chorus, but there's also a very distinct story that they're telling you through the song itself. And so that's very
Give me 3
interesting.
steps. Give me 3
Yeah.
steps, mister.
Give me 3 steps towards the door, because he
Yep.
didn't know that he was looking at a lady that was taken. She was looking back.
Yeah.
How was he supposed to know?
How's he supposed to know? Yep.
Yeah.
I'll never see me no more.
Exactly. But it's that kind of stuff. Like, I could totally see writing chapters off of something like that. You know, you're listening to music and you have the shuffle going on, and you're like, oh, that works. You know,
it's also a great thing that it gets you out of your storytelling patterns.
Yes.
Because all of a sudden something new comes in, because Africa showed up. And I thought, what am I going to do with that? We're in London. And I thought, okay, there's a guy from Nigeria coming in and he's got something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought, what's it going to be? And I swear I've got the story, and I really want to write it, but I just haven't. I don't even have a draft of that. So
well, you better.
I should, better because be soon. Then I can release all 3 of them as in one book, because it'd be 3 novellas.
That was going to be my next question. So your idea would be to do the 3 novellas and then produce it as one book.
Yeah.
I want that book. I do. I really want that book. And when I tend to want something, I can also be very irritating when I don't get what I want. Yep. So you may get an email. I won't lie. I might say, so how is the songbook going? I'm wondering. I need something to read, please.
Well, this is also why we're going to stop with the annotations with Roger Ackroyd.
Okay.
That's the next book. I'm going to put out Man in the Brown Suit, because I actually skipped over that one. That's actually number 5 in the series.
Okay.
We already have The Secret of Chimneys, which is number 6. And now we'll do Roger Ackroyd, because that's going to go into the public domain January 1st.
Ah, okay.
So we want to actually be there with that book.
That's a great idea.
And then we decided we're going to stop.
Okay.
And then that means I will have all my time to finish up
all
these fiction projects.
Well, you obviously have a wonderful imagination. And I know that some people are very drawn to working off of someone else's work because it jumpstarts them. But it sounds like you also have the ability to make your own stories out of your own whole cloth, out of whatever is percolating in there. And so, I'd love to see what you can do with something like that. And I would love to see that as like chapters inside the novella. Like each chapter is whatever song it was, and how that my brain just clicked. And I was like, oh, what if this person was like in a taxi, and like every time they get into the taxi there's a different song playing that almost foretells what it is, what is about to happen.
That'd be very unnerving to do that. Get into your Uber. We'll do Stephen King-ish here. It's going to be the bloody Uber.
Yeah, no,
and it's going to be somebody's. Let's see. You have to go blood red Mustang from 1971.
Yes, okay. I'll go with 71. I prefer the 68. My husband's dad actually bought a 1968 California Special Mustang off the showroom floor and still has it to this day. And it's yellow with black stripes and the pony interior. And I was like, so, I mean, do you think he would notice if we drove it from California to Pennsylvania and it just kind of disappeared? My husband's like, pretty sure he and I'm like, but I'm so cute. Can I just make the smiley face and shrug my shoulders and say, I just really liked it. We just went a little farther than I meant to.
I just didn't want it to end,
I didn't. And then I missed getting off in Las Vegas. So we just kept on going because there was nowhere to turn around. And then all of a sudden we're in Pennsylvania. And I was like, I mean,
my GPS did this.
Right.
My GPS told me
following it.
Just kept following it. Honest.
Because I would do so. That's totally me. But yeah, that could be something that you think about. That we have run over my time, which is fine. Right. This has been a blast. I'm having so much fun. But I want to make sure that I can get you on whole cloth into the thing. So if you can tell us really quick, by the way, I have had the best time. And again, thank you so much for your patience while I was
Absolutely.
trying to figure
Absolutely.
out
This was a
how
blast. I love
not
this.
awesome I am about technical aspects when
Yeah.
my IT guy is not
Well,
here.
you know, well,
Yeah,
remember your audience doesn't know that. So
this is, well, now they do,
so
because
you
I
got to
always tell on
remember
myself.
before somebody else does.
Right. Well,
We
I figure own it, because once you own it, then you know how it's going to be received, and you can
well,
brace yourself for what
that's
comes
true.
next.
Once you own it, then you have control over how
Yes, you
it is
do.
presented. So you're not
Absolutely.
being laughed at, you're laughing at yourself.
Oh yeah, I do that all
Uh,
the time. If I didn't laugh at myself, I think that that my life would be very boring, and I like it just the way it is. So,
Absolutely.
can you tell us where to find you? And
Okay.
then, what, so I know that you have the side where you're publishing multiple books. So where do we find you, and what comes next?
Best way to do it is Peschel Press.
Okay.
That's
And that's
Peschel press.com.
okay.
So it's just my last name with press after it. That's the most. There's links to the other sites as well, because we have Odessa Moon has a site, and then there's Career Indie Author, which was another book project that we hadn't even gotten into, and that has a site as well. But Peschel Press is the best way to find me.
Okay.
And we have email links there, and we have a Facebook page too, and a Twitter feed, and all the other accoutrements that go with being a modern author in a 21st century American society.
Yeah. And then what is coming next? What can we look for from you next?
Brown Suit is coming up next. I'm finishing it, so hopefully we'll get that out maybe next month.
Okay.
And the casebook of the Cases of Blue Plaramel, that is the James Thurber Sherlock Holmes shorts that he wrote for a newspaper back when he was like a young man working for a newspaper in Columbus.
Okay, very cool.
So that's going to be the final volume in the 223B casebook series. So those are the two, and then we'll have more coming up, but right now those are the two that are closest to being finished.
So keep an eye on that. And can I tell you that I love the cover on that one? That is super cute.
On this?
Yes.
Oh
yes.
Yeah. That's from
really
the Punch parodies.
Yes.
So I just
Punch
take
and
our
Judy, right?
it.
Punch and Judy.
Well, Punch magazine, which was a humor magazine from Britain in hundreds of years, 134 years, something like that.
Crazy. I love it. I love it.
But
that is so
exciting.
Thank you for being here. Since you're
I'm not interviewing you. You're interviewing me. I'm going to say thank you so much for asking me here.
I love that.
Does Johnny Carson ever have these problems? I don't know.
That was beautiful, because for a second I paused and I was like, did you just take me for being at my own podcast? Although you could, since we had such an issue getting on, you could absolutely say, well, thank you for finally getting here. I do appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Oh my God.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much,
wonderful. Misty. I'm glad. This was a whole lot of fun. I hope that people will come find you, and that they will also bother you endlessly to get them this songbook, because London I really want to read that, because I think it's a brilliant idea, and I would love to see what you could do with something like that. Okay. So I will definitely put links in the bottom for anyone who is listening. And then I'm going to make the same offer that I do every time. If you have a question for Bill or myself, or there's something that we can help you kind of learn, something to expand on, please drop your comment down below, and I will definitely let Bill know anything that comes in, because we want you to learn, we want you to write, and we would be happy, absolutely happy, to answer anything that we can to help you get on that journey. So thank you again, Bill, so much for being here. This was an absolute blast. I really appreciate it. And thank you for coming on out to Gab. That's a horrible outro. Thank you for being here with us on Out on a Limb with Gabby, Allan. You guys have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.